Hello, everyone. So let's talk about IATN. Yeah, no one says internationalization. I'm Olivier Combe. I work for the core team. Sorry. OK. I work for the core team. A few years ago, I was working on AngularJS. It was like at least 10 JS frameworks ago, or maybe more. And I was working on a library called OC-LazyLoad. And that's how I learned Angular. And when I learned AngularJS, and when Angular came out, I decided to do the same and work on a library. And I wrote something called ngx translate, which was at the time ng2 translate, but we are not supposed to say ng2. So ngx translate became the solution for internationalization in Angular. And last year at Angular Belgium, NGBE, I was talking with Igor, and I wanted to quit my job and work on ngx translate full-time. And I wanted to ask him a few advice on how to make my library better. And right before I told him that, he told me, hey, Olivier, we've got a problem. People come to us, and they want to use ngx translate, but we want people to use IATN with Angular, not your library. So what can we do? And I was like, oh, so well, maybe I've got a solution. I could come and help you make IATN better in Angular. And one thing leading to another, I joined the core team in February to work on IATN. And here I am. So let's see what I've been doing for the V4 and V5 and what we will be working on after that. So how Angular and IATN works for now? Well, Angular provides a few things that you can use for your Angular applications. So you've got pipes, IATN pipes, which include date, number, %, and currency pipes. You've got something that is called ICO expressions that a lot of people don't know about, and we will see an example in a minute, which lets you give translations depending on the value of your variables. And then we have template translations, which lets you translate your templates using a tool to extract your text and then translating it and merging it into your application. So this is what it looks like when you have an application that uses Angular IATN. You just add the IATN attribute on your elements, and then this will be used to extract your text. This is not a directive. It will be removed at runtime. It's only used for the extraction tool. And you can translate text. You can translate attribute as well. If you want, for example, to translate the title on an image, you just add IATN dash and the name of the attribute, in this case, title. And the last example is what I told you about. It's an ICO expression. It's a conditional expression. We have two types of ICO in Angular, plural and select. In this case, this is a plural expression, and depending on the value of minutes, if it's 0, 1, or any other value, you will have different text. And you have a lot of choices. You can read the documentation for that. So what have we been working on for V5? Well, we've worked on pipes. We've actually rewritten them from scratch. And we also worked on something new called the IATN API. I decided to call it like that, but you can do whatever you want. And then we rewrote the IATN guide from Angular.io. It was just released last week. And you have brand new examples using the CLI instead of system.js, like it was the case before. And you have some new things like how to set up your local for your application. And we will be improving this guide by adding new examples and new documentation. For example, the API is not yet in the guide, so I will add this soon. We've also worked on better CLI integration so that you don't have to set up too many things to use Angular IATN. And the CLI will take care of most of the boilerplate that you need to use for IATN. So what have we changed in IATN pipes? Well, you might not know this, but in Angular v4, the pipes are using something called the Intel API. And the Intel API is provided by browsers, and it lets you do string comparisons and formatting for text, numbers, currencies, and time. And this is a new API official from JavaScript that is implemented in the new browsers. And we decided to use this originally in Angular, but it turns out that there are a few problems with this API. The browser support is not complete, so if you have an old browser, you need to use a polyfill. And this polyfill weighs 60 kilobytes minified, which is a lot. And then you have to add the locals as well. And also you have bugs in the usual Internet Explorer and Safari. And some of these formatting options will not appear exactly the same depending on the browser, so this is an issue. So we've decided to replace the Intel API by something called CLDR, which is the Unicode Common Local Data Repository. And this is a common repository that is provided by the Unicode organization, and a lot of big companies participate in this repository, such as Google, Apple, IBM, Adobe, Microsoft. And actually, even the Intel API is based on CLDR data, because locals are really complicated stuff, so you need something that is common to everyone. So what we've done is actually what we did previously in AngularJS. We've extracted the data from CLDR, and we wrote our own API to use this data. So in Angular v5, we started to use this CLDR data, and you will be able to use the APIs that we wrote to use this data. So this is what we call the IATN API. I will show you an example right after that. We also took the time to add a few features to those pipes, some things that were missing. You now have the ability to set the local for each of the date, number, currency, and person pipes. So if you want to have a pipe in English and a pipe in French on the same page, or if you want to show currencies in different languages, you can do it now. You can also set the time zone in the date pipe. So in v4, when you use the date pipe, it would actually use the time zone from the browser of the people surfing on your website. And this was a problem because sometimes people want that date that is exactly in a specific time zone. So now we have a new parameter for that. And we have a lot of other things, like formatting options. You can read more about it in the changelog for Angular v5. So like I told you, we extract the CLDR data, and then you have to import it in your application. So this is something new that you have to do, because previously it was provided by browsers, but obviously we cannot include the local data for all of the existing locals. There are something like at least 600 locals. So that would be a lot of data. By default, Angular includes data for English, US English. If you want to use something else, you need to import it and register this local data anywhere in your application, and then it will be available everywhere. If you use the CLI, it actually does that for you, so you don't have to do it. You just have to use the local parameter with the CLI. So let's see a quick demo of these new pipes. So this is a simple application that displays 2 date pipes and 1 currency pipe. If we look at the template, is it readable for everyone? OK. Yeah. So we use the date pipe. The second parameter is the same as before. It's a format. In this case, we use a full. We can change it to short, medium, long. It's a default template that is used to display your date. Then the third parameter is now the time zone. So you can set this to anything that you want. By default, it will still use the time zone of the browser. And the last parameter is the local. So in this case, the application is already in English, so both date pipes show the same thing. If I switch to French, The first date pipe uses the local ID that I provided for the application. So now it's using French, and the second one is in English. So you can notice that the default format provided by the date pipe will change the order of the different components from the date, so the day, the months, and stuff like that, depending on the locale. But you can also provide a custom format if you prefer. For example, you can say that you want just the year and the month. In this case, we will not change the order depending on the locale, but only the translation if we need to. And for the currency pipe, I'm outputting Canadian dollars here, so using the code for the currency, which is CAD. And by default, now it's using the symbol, which is CA dollar for Canadian dollars. And we have this new option that you can choose if you want to use the narrow symbol. In this case, it's dollar. By default, we provide the symbol with the most information, which is the default from CLDR, but sometimes you want something that is localized and you don't need to say that it's Canadian dollars if your website is for Canadian people. You can also use the code if you prefer, like you could previously. So let's see a small demo for the API as well. So this is using the calendar from Material Design. Material Design includes something called a date adapter, which allows you to replace how dates are treated by the calendar. And by default, they use a native adapter, which is still using Intel, the Intel API. And they also provide a Moment.js adapter if you want. So what I did here is that I wrote an IATN date adapter, which uses the new Angular API, which is available in Angular Common, in the Common package. And you can find this in the documentation. If you go to the API, you search with something starting by getLocal, and you will get the list of functions that you can use in this API. Each function has a short documentation, and then we will add more details in the IATN guide soon. So if you use one of these functions, you will, for example, get the list of months. You just say get local month name. You provide the locale from Material Design and the still format if you want, and it will return the name of the month. So let's plug this in. We just need to say that we want to use this date adapter and the date format. And you see that nothing changed, but actually it doesn't use the Intel API anymore. So you can drop the polyfill here, and it will work across all browsers, and you will gain 50 kilobytes from your application. If you switch to French, it will work as well. You will have the months localized and everything. So this is something that we hope will help people who write UI components or who want to do generic components that can be reused in different locales. It means that you don't have to provide translation for your components. You just use this API, and it will automatically use the locale from the application of the people using your component. It's something that we will use in Angular Material, but also we hope in the other UI, such as Clarity, or any of the ones that they quote before as the sponsors. So let's see what we are working on right now. This is not yet available in Angular v5. We are working on better documentation. We will also be working on bug fixes, because when you release a new version, you always have bugs. We will, Victor Berchet, who is working with me at Google on IATN, is right now working on something called runtime translations. This is a very important feature, and let's see why. Right now, in Angular, we use static translations. So what this means is that the text that you extract from your application, you will get a file, an XLIF file or XMB file, and you will translate this, and you will merge it in your application at build time. And this means that for each local of your application, you will need one build. So this is a problem for us and for a lot of enterprises. When you have hundreds of locals, it can take 4 hours or more to build your application in all of these locals. And this is problematic. And it also means that since those translations are static, they only work with templates, because code is dynamic and we cannot translate it and replace it at build time. So this is how it works right now. You have your templates, and the HTML parser from the compiler will extract the nodes. And then at the same time, you have the translations that you provided, and something called a serializer will extract the IATN nodes. So you have a serializer for xleaf and for xmb. Once you have those nodes, we will merge them with the HTML nodes, which means that we will match which node corresponds to which translation, and we will replace the text. And this is done at build time, and after that, the AOT compiler gets the templates, the nodes, and creates the factories. So this is totally transparent for your users. They don't know that you've used translations because this is replaced at build time, so the application is the same minus the translations. It also means that since this is working on templates and at build time, you can, in your translation, move the nodes if you want, remove something, or even add some nodes if you need. And then your application bootstraps, and the view are created, and it runs. But this is also a problem for libraries, because libraries cannot use translation and build their library in multiple locales and then distribute the library in multiple locales. This would be really complicated to do. So this is something that we try to fix, and Victor is working on runtime translations. What this means is that instead of merging the translation at build time, we will merge them at runtime, and we will have one build for all locales, so that all locales will be bundled in your application, and we will apply it at runtime. This also means that libraries can use IATN, because translation become independent from the code. And you can provide translation as part of your package, but then you will need to apply them at runtime, or you can let the users translate your components themselves, as long as you flag your nodes as IATN. This is also the first step for code translations, and a lot of people are waiting for that. So since we will be doing translation at runtime, it means that we can also translate code. So how it works is that the part on the left is the same, but the translation that we load will be transformed in IATN definitions. And when your application runs and the view are created, we will merge these IATN definitions with your views. This is a bit complicated because if you use AOT, you don't have the compiler at runtime. And we cannot, we don't want to add too many code into your application just for that. So Victor is working hard on making this as simple as possible for the Angular application to merge the node. But this comes with a few restrictions as well. Because of that, it means that you cannot change the nesting of your nodes, which was the case before. But we think that this is acceptable because it was a specific use case. You can no longer, in your translation, add nodes inside of nodes in your translation if it was not the case in your current application, because it would mess up with content projection, the content child, or the host bindings, and anything like that that counts on how the nodes are organized in your application. So we've seen some of the stuff that we are working on right now. And I've told you that what we are going to work next on is code translations. A lot of people are waiting for that. And we hope to make this available during V5 as a minor version. we need to finish runtime translation before. And hopefully you will have that in the next 6 months. I would also like to work on something called skeleton formats for datepipe. I explained to you that we have a few formats predefined for the datepipe, such as short, medium, full, and long. If you use a custom format, you actually, the elements will not move around. You will only have the translation in different locales. And in French, for example, you don't put the month's name at the same place as you do in English. And this doesn't work with custom formats. So what skeleton formats will do is that you will get the best of both formats, predefined format and custom formats. And you will be able to say that you want a custom format that only contains dates with the year and the month, for example. You don't want the day and everything else. And it will keep only those elements and move them in your application depending on the locale. This is also something that will be available for the IETN API, because you will need it if you want to show, if we quickly look at the data native adapter that I wrote for material, you will see that at the beginning you have the formats that you can use. So in this case, the date input here will use the short date. If, for example, I change this to long, you will get the long format here. And the month year label, which is here on the selector, uses month and year. And this doesn't move around in different locales. So using skeleton formats, we could have this as well to provide better localized version of your application and of your libraries. We are also working on a lot of other things, small features, bug fixes, of course. If you want to see what the current status of IETN is, you can check this GitHub issue. And you can, if you have new features that you want, don't hesitate to post something in this and ask if this is possible. Thank you, everyone. You can join the discussion on GitHub as well in this issue, where I ask if you have any problem with IETN right now, if you are using it, or if you are not using it, why, and if you want to use it but you can't because of some reason. Don't hesitate to go there and tell me, and make sure that we can improve Angular and make IETN better for you. Thank you.